Welcome back to another episode of I Wish Someone Would Have Told Me, where we dive into all those topics that we really wish somebody would have told us about before we started this whole adulting thing. So let's jump right into this week's episode. I wish someone would have told me life is hard. Hey guys, as you can hear, I am ready to just jump into today's podcast. And yeah, this is one that it's kind of one that's leading to another podcast that I have coming. And it's just kind of my thoughts on trials in life. I want to preface this by saying that this is just one of those categories where I feel like parents don't teach us these things because they just don't really think about it. I think every parent understands that their children are going to go through hardships. Pretty sure every parent looks at their little baby and they're just like, oh my gosh, one day you may go through a heartbreak, or you may go through a hard time in life, or you're going to get hurt, whether physically or emotionally. You're going to get hurt. Like, these things happen, and people are going to betray you, and you are going to betray people. And like, there's a lot of negative things that are going to happen, and you just can't imagine that your little baby's going to have to go through. And because I think parents spend a lot of time trying to protect the innocence of a child, and I was having this conversation with my mom one time. We were talking about how parents spend so much time trying to protect the innocence of a child and don't even realize that when they're going into the school systems, or just out in public, or out of your sight just in general, or even getting on their phones and getting on social media and things of that nature, these areas are slowly stealing the innocence away from children, and life comes at them hard. And because parents never open that door to talk to their kids don't actually come and talk to them about the hard things that happen in life. And so my mom and I were just basically, the conversation between me and my mom was just how crazy it is that how kids are just sponges, and they soak up things so quickly and so much, and it happens so fast you don't even realize it, or it happens in a way that's so out of your control you don't even realize that it has happened. And so going along the lines of life is hard, I think there's absolutely no way that someone can prepare you for everything that's going to happen in your life, because that would imply that someone is almost godlike and knows everything that's about to happen in your life. And we know that that's not the case. We know that there's no one but God that knows everything that's going to happen in our life, and that knows everything that we're going to go through, and that's there to try to protect us from everything that we're going to go through. And so I think it's super important to understand that even though we wish someone would have told us life is hard, there's absolutely no way for people to prepare us for the things that we're going to go through in life. I think that a lot of times we do expect a certain level of preparation from our parents, and your parents are really just are so focused on trying to teach you the ABCs of life that they're not really thinking through the algebra of life. You know, there's some parents that do think through those things, and there's some parents that do move through those things. And then there's parents that really don't, because they're trying to help you get the basics down, because maybe they do understand that there's things that they just can't prepare you for. But I wish somebody would have told me that life is going to be hard. I got told a lot, don't grow up too fast, which, oh my gosh, it's so true. Like, children, if you get to take naps, enjoy your naps. I think every adult in this world can say, I would love to just be forced to take like 5 naps in a day, and I would go down on those. I would take those naps. Like, oh, nap time? Yes, I'll go put myself to sleep. I think that every adult can think that. And I think I distinctly remember being 8 and thinking, I've got 10 years till I'm 18, and just feeling like I can't wait till I'm an adult. And I was never that child. I never had that thought of, when I turn 18, I'm moving out, all that. Like, I never understood people that had that thought. Like, I never understood that. I never thought that. I just wanted to be an adult. My mom would go to the store. I'm pretty sure y'all mamas did the same thing. My mom would go to the store. She said I used to always ask for her food. So then my mom, she didn't come up with this, because I've heard too many mamas say this. My mom would go to the store and buy these little cakes, ice cream cakes, but by the slices, right? And I'd be like, "Oh, Mom, can I have a piece?" This grown people food. I couldn't wait to become an adult so I could eat grown people food, right? I remember one day, I think I told you guys this story where my husband, it was like late at night, and I don't remember what he was eating. I think it was donuts, and it was like late at night, and he just went in, grabbed a bag of donuts, like those little powdered donuts, and just started going to town. And the first thing I wanted to say to him was, don't eat that before you go to bed. That was the first thought. And then I retracted that thought, and I was like, this is what grown life is doing. It's about being able to do whatever you want and understanding that there may be consequences to that. Because I know a lot of you that have had late night donuts are looking in the mirror like, where did that come from? and you and you sit back and you're like, okay, so now that I got this little pouch, I'm gonna get rid of it. Like, but nobody tells you about that side of adulting. Nobody tells you you're gonna gain weight and it's not gonna go away, and that even though you run around and all that other stuff, it's still gonna be hard. Nobody tells you about that. This should be titled, I wish somebody would have told me that exercise is hard. I'm just playing. But no, serious talk though. I feel like, when you're a kid, and like when I was a kid, you just have this mindset of what adulting looks like. And y'all, it is blissful. It is a life where you get to do whatever you want. It's a life where you get to make your own choices, where you're not told no. And even if you are told no, at the end of the day, it is your choice and you get to make that choice. And as a child, that seems just so appealing, right? And like the saying I heard somewhere, and I love saying it, the grass looks greener on the other side, but that's only because you're not watering your grass, right? So when you're a kid, you're just not, how would you say it? Like relishing the moment and enjoying the moment of being a kid, because you're so concerned about everything that's going on the other side and just wanting to get to that adulthood stage. And then life hits you. I don't know at what point life starts hitting people. Like, I'm sure it's different for everybody, and it happens, of course, in different ways. There are kids that, people say maybe they're teenagers or things of that nature, and I've seen life hit kids way younger than that. I watched I think she was about 7 years old, 6 or 7 year old life come at a 6 or 7 year old and just completely change her demeanor. Like, and to me, it's just watching that. It's like, man, it makes me just want to go grab her and hold her. At the time, it made me just want to go grab her and hold her and tell her, explain to her, life is going to be hard. Things are going to happen. Things that are outside of your control and things that are within your control. It is not about life being hard that matters. As much as we would want somebody to prepare us for every little thing in life, that's impossible. It's not about what happens in life. It's about what we do with what happens in life that matters. Your life is hard. If you haven't realized that, or if you don't know that, I'm going to be the first one to tell you, and I'm going to be the first one to bring it to your attention. Life is hard. And that's all there is to it. There's no getting around it. I know we would all love just a way to get around it or a way to get through it. But at the end of the day, there is no way. You have to go through the hardships of life. But it's not about the hardships. See, the hardships are there for a purpose. The hardships are there to make you a stronger person. The hardships are there to make you a stronger being. So it's more about how you respond to the hardships that shows your character. It shows your ability to survive. It shows your will to survive. A lot of people lose that will because they don't know how to handle the hardships of life. And so even though people aren't able to teach you that life is going to be hard, or these are the specific circumstances that you're going to go through to have a hard life, they should be able to teach you, this is how you get through them. This is how you get over them. I think back on my life, and I think about how at a young age, with my dad passing away, and then years later, my grandfather passing away, and then a couple years later, my godmom passing away. At a very, very young age, the thought of death was really real to me. was very real to me. The thought of people are here today and gone tomorrow was very real to me. I remember a good friend of mine passing away. It just, there, because of that, I didn't feel safe. It's the only way I can put it. Like, I just didn't feel safe. I felt like what they call them abandonment issues, like that was me. I felt like the people that I held dear and I held close, I needed to hold them dear and to hold them close because um, they weren't going to be around. I felt like when I got close to people, they disappeared. It was growing up, and still even now that I'm an adult, I still deal with that on a pretty hefty level, just being honest. Just living in that fear of what if, what if, what if. And my fears are always surrounded around somebody leaving me and I never ever get to be connected to them again in whatever capacity. You know, it could just be a loss of friendships or it could be death. It's just that fear of that disconnect and being abandoned in a way. And this causes me to overthink a lot of things about just relationships in general. It causes me to overthink my friendships, my relationships with my family, and my relationship even in my marriage, where it's just like, what if something happens to my husband, you know? And then all of a sudden I'm single all back over again, you know? And it just like that fear. A lot of times, well, not a lot of times, but um sometimes, I don't want to put it on a lot of times because I don't know, to be honest. I think that when a child loses someone at a young age, it is so easy to just kind of work with them through it. And, you know, my mom's case saying daddy's not coming back home and all of that stuff. Um, And then as I got older, I think the perception was, well, at this point, you're older, you need to understand that death is a part of life. Like it just happens. People come on this earth, they live and they die. And no one understands that there's underlying issues. Now, I'm just talking about death and I'm talking about feelings of abandonment, but you can take what I'm saying and apply it to whatever you've gone through in life and say, wow, you know, when I was a child, XYZ happened. And now I see that through that hardship in life, it has affected so many different areas of my life now mentally. I think it's so important that when trauma happens to a child, or even trauma happens to someone who's older. When my friend passed away, I was 18. I literally just turned 18 a couple weeks before. Certain level of trauma. I even remember my brother, um, the way he coped. There's just a certain level of trauma that he dealt with when it was his best friend that passed away. And he just played video games. It was almost like he didn't want to go to bed. He just stayed up and he played his video game. And my brother he's not really, he likes video games, but he's not a gamer, if that makes sense. He didn't know how to process it. But I do know that he had that feeling of almost like an emotional deja vu. And I don't think, and my mom was very good at protecting us. She was very good at protecting us. She protected us the best way she could as a mother, I feel. You know, we call her Mama Bear because that's just how my mama was. But I feel like, you know, something that would have been helpful that nobody really thinks about, I can't say anybody thinks about this, is sitting a person who's been through the trauma of a loss down and explaining to them life is hard. Bad things happen. But everybody's not going to leave you. And it's going to feel like that. There's going to be times where fear just comes into your life and makes you feel like I'm going to lose everyone and everything, and I'm going to be alone in this world. And it's only because there's a certain thing in your mind that's triggering that trauma. It's very hard for me to let go of friendships. If I have a falling out with someone, I'm immediately trying to figure out how to fix it. If I'm to the point where I'm like, I'm not trying to fix this, something has happened that makes me feel like this is not worth fixing, if that makes sense. Like, if I'm to the point where we've had a falling out and I'm not actively trying to fix things with you, there's something that has happened that has made me think this may not be to my benefit to fix, in a way of mentally. It's not spiritually, emotionally. If I get caught back up in this relationship in whatever capacity, it's gonna mess me up. So it's usually the time where it's my mind overrides my fear, and it's just like, nah, this needs to be cut. But a lot of people that I've come in contact with that have lost family members, and I'm not talking about just death. It could be people, parents getting a divorce or something like that. They put up this wall, and that wall isn't necessarily to keep everyone out. It's almost like, I have up this wall. I would love if you all came in, but I also know if you all come in, you may be able to get out. And so I'm not afraid of people coming in. I'm afraid of their exit strategy. And I think that right there is what's important to instill into people of all ages, because people go through trauma at different ages, but especially younger people. Life isn't just hard, but you're going to have to deal with things that you can't comprehend. You're going to have to deal with things that emotionally you can't explain, but you're going to be okay. You've got to know how to pick yourself up. That may seem like a lot to tell a kid. It's not about just telling them. It's also about showing them. And this is how you pick yourself back up. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to go through grief. These are the levels of grief. If you all think a child can't understand that, like the conversation my mom and I were having, it was like, parents are so bent on like keeping their children away from sexual things and drugs and all that other stuff, and not introducing these things to their children at such a young age, and so you don't talk about them, which is fine, because I think child innocence is so important. The problem is you send them to school, and kids as young as 4 and 5 years old are having full-fledged conversations about these things, and they know what they're talking about. Like, they really actually have an understanding to some extent. They may not understand the consequences, but they understand what they're talking about. It's in their conversations in school. It's in the music. When you go on these apps and things of that nature, like TikTok, I have a niece that I think she's like 4, and she's just singing this TikTok song over and over and over again, and all her cousins are around her, and they're all laughing because they know where this song comes from. And in my head, I'm just like, oh my gosh, what are these kids picking up on these social media sites that are going to open doors that parents don't even realize that they're opening, but because you're so busy trying to protect their innocence, you don't even realize that the world around them is taking it away, and something's going to happen, and they're not going to be prepared. Life is hard, and I wish someone would have told me. Like I said, nobody's going to be able to really break down every little thing that happens in my life. Nobody's going to be able to do that. But I think now is the time to reevaluate communication with children. Kids these days are not what they were when I was a kid. When I was a kid, life wasn't about social media. It wasn't about phones. It wasn't about dancing and all that other stuff. Like, that wasn't life. Life was going outside and getting on your bike and scraping your knee and getting back up and getting back on the bike, or going inside and crying, or just walking inside and forgetting to close the door and getting yelled at because you're letting out all the cool air. Like, that was life. That was life when I was growing up and, not being able to run in and out of the house. I had a neighbor that when I played outside, me and my brother played outside with her son, we would go to their house sometimes to play. She would leave the door unlocked and we would just go in and out as we please. If we wanted to go play with our friend, we would go to the house, knock like twice, and then just walk in. Be like, hey, we're here to play. Like, that's the relationships that we had growing up. It was all about playing and being innocent and being kids and all that other stuff. And still, life hit me hard. And still, I wasn't prepared to respond to life's negativity. That's the key. I wasn't prepared to respond to the negative things that happen in life. I wasn't taught how to cope and how to deal with. And it caused a lot of issues in my adult life because in the adults in my life, in their minds, it was, you're an adult now. You shouldn't be going through this. You shouldn't be acting like this. And in my mind, I was like, but how am I supposed to act? This is how I've always acted. No one has told me anything different. How am I supposed to act? We've never had talks. So how am I supposed to act? I'm just doing what I've always done. And if that's what I went through as a kid that played outside and came inside and my mama said, you smell like outside, like if that's how I react, having that kind of upbringing, imagine what the kids and the teenagers of today are going through. Imagine how much more they need to be taught about life and about survival and about responses and things of that nature. When I say I wish someone would have told me life is hard, I'm not saying I wish someone would have had a detailed plan of my life laid out so I knew how to get over everything. But I do wish someone would have told me life is hard and this is how you overcome hardships. Overcoming is an ongoing process. You're always going to go through something new, so you're always going to have to find a new tactic to overcome. And so everybody's not going to be able to tell you everything every time, but if you have the baseline, that's the thing. For a lot of Christians, their baseline, their foundation is Christ. It's the Bible, things of that nature, but also morals, right? Morals are super important. Teaching integrity, teaching things like when I was growing up, your reputation was a huge thing that was drilled into me. Understanding that you can't do everything that you want to do because you have a reputation to uphold, and that reputation needs to be important to you. Just understanding those things and being taught those things, I think that is super important to being able to overcome everything that life just bombards you with, because that's what it does. Life will just bombard you if you let it. So when I say again, I wish someone would have told me life is hard, I'm really saying take time to tell your kids that things happen and these are ways that you can cope. Here are some morals. Here are some values. Here are some scriptures. Here's a foundation on how to get through life. And all you got to do is change the face to fit your situation. That's it. But it's almost the same process. Just change the face a little bit to fit your situation. But y'all, life is hard. And as long as for me, what I have found to be the surviving force of my life when I wanted to give up and when I wanted to commit suicide and when I wanted to disappear because I felt like I was a burden on anybody and everybody in my life, to me, what I have found to be that source of strength and that source of keep going in this is Christ. That's the only thing I could find. That was the only thing I could hold on to. That's the only thing that kept holding me, because I really don't know how else I've made it this far. I've been a child in a great family. I've had great family relationships, had a great mom. I have a great brother. I still have a great mom. I said I had a great mom. I still have a great mom. I have a great mom. I have a great brother. My grandmother's like my best friend. I grew up. I got married. I have a husband now. One day we'll have kids. And I still went through some of the hardest things that even people looked at me and say, is life really that bad? Yeah, actually it is right now. Life really is that bad. As good as everything looks, life really is that bad right now. And I went through those moments where I felt like that, and where I felt like I was drowning, where I felt like I was down, even though my family tried to do things to keep us happy. I still went through a lot of sad moments. The one thing that I have to say kept me, because people can't keep you. A lot of people think that when I get married, I'm going to be happy and all that other stuff. People can't keep you. The thing that's going to keep you throughout life is God. That's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no way of getting around it. You can sit there and say, no, this makes me happy or that makes me happy. And that's why when people try to find happiness outside of Christ, they end up finding it in a beer bottle. They end up finding it in drugs. They end up finding it in so many other outlets. And they don't realize that they're just trying to fill a void in their life that can never be filled unless Christ is the one to fill it. That foundation of how to overcome is super important to instill in your children at the youngest of ages, because the enemy is out there putting a whole bunch of other garbage into them. So you got to get to them first. I wish someone would have told me life is hard. Not lay out a blueprint, but definitely give me a foundation. And hopefully something in this you can relate to, and that you can kind of look at your own life. My goal for today wasn't to be like jolly uplifting. My goal today was more to just be like, hardships are real. They're so real. Hurts are real. Things are real. And sometimes you go through things as a child that directly impact your personality as an adult. And you sit back and you wonder, why am I like this? Why am I going through this mentally and all that other stuff? Retrace your steps back to things that happened when you were a child, and you'll start understanding, that traumatized me subconsciously in a way that's affecting how I view in my entire life even now. So that's the whole goal today, was just to make you think. And like I said, this is kind of a prequel. I don't know what to call it, to a podcast that I have coming up that's definitely gonna get deeper into the bad things that happen in life and how to overcome those things. But until then, I will talk to you guys later, and I'll see you next week. Bye. All right, that wraps up this episode of I Wish Someone Would Have Told Me. If you all have something more that you want to add, please just share it with me at iwish.swhtm@gmail.com. That's iwish.someonewouldhavetoldme, swhtm@gmail.com. I'd love to hear your feedback, your critiques, your thoughts. Maybe we'll talk about them on another episode. I'm always down for doing a part 2 of anything and coming back and talking about something more or expounding on some of your topics. And hey, if you know a person who's not quite adulting yet, go ahead and share this with them so that they can get some tips from us older folk on some of the things that we've gone through in life and some of the things that they need to look out for in life. And I'm always willing to have conversations, so please drop me a line. I'm always looking for new topics, so if you can think of a topic that you wish someone would have told you about, go ahead and drop that line. All right, I'll talk to you all next week. Have a great week. Toodles.